Have you ever stopped to think what would happen if your ability to make money suddenly disappeared? What would you do? Well, meet Dr. Daniel, a successful endodontist in his early 40s. Now, Dr. Daniel, he's happily married and the father of 3 kids, 9, 7, and 5. Now, for the past 10 years, he's been a good boy and he's really followed the advice from all his other dental friends regarding how to invest his money. Now, he's been with the same financial advisor since joining a practice, and he thought the best way to retirement was his recommendation: max out the good old 401k each year. Now, one afternoon, during a very fun game of basketball in his driveway with his 9-year-old, something happened. You see, Dr. Daniel grew up like me, a huge MJ fan or Michael Jordan. So when he decided to do one of those fancy Jordan type crossover moves against his son, things didn't work out so well. Good old Dr. Daniel slipped and fell, and unfortunately, he broke his arm. Suddenly, he can't perform his dental work, which means he has no other means of providing for his family. For the first time, he realizes just how fragile his financial security truly is. He starts wondering, is there a better way? And that's exactly what we're going to get into in this video. And if you're new here, I'm Dr. Jeff Anzalone, a periodontist trying to get you out of the rat race, not relying on your W-2 income for money. Do me a favor, download the free passive income guide with the link below the video. All right, back to Dr. Daniel. After realizing that without the use of his hands, he can't make money, he quickly realized that he had to do something about it. Now, he wasn't the type of person to sit around, procrastinate, and feel sorry for himself. He had 3 mouths to feed, and his wife was concerned that she maybe would have to cut back on her shopping. And that just couldn't happen, right? And that's when he discovered a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, also known as the Purple Bible. And in the book, he learns about something called the Cashflow Quadrant. Now, let's take a very quick look and see what's involved with the Cashflow Quadrant. It's actually divided into 4 sections. You've got E, employee, you've got self-employed, business owner, and investor. Now, most people, like our good old friend Dr. Daniel, they start out on the left side of the quadrant, which Kiyosaki calls the poor side. All right. I started off on the left side of the quadrant. I rented space from an actual endodontist for 2 years, so I was his employee, and eventually I moved to the self-employed quadrant. All right. So again, most people, they start out on the left side of the quadrant. They're either employees or self-employed. So this side over here, you are trading your time for money. But what happens if you're on this side and you can't work, just like Dr. Daniel? That's when the right side, or the rich side, becomes very crucial. Now, again, if you're employed, you are basically working for somebody, right? You may have benefits like a 401k, you may have health, but again, you are trading your time for money. Your employer has control over you. Once you move to the self-employed quadrant, you're your own boss, but you're still trading time for money. And here, if your income stops like Dr. Daniel's, you can't work, you can't make money. Now, let's talk about the right side. On the right side, as a business owner, you have a system or people that are working for you. Your income doesn't stop if you're not physically present. I've got a friend of mine that owns a health club in town. He's got a system, he has people, he has trainers, he has managers, he has all that stuff. He doesn't physically have to be there in order to get paid. All right. That's the business owner. The investor is where your money is working for you around the clock. And this is actually the quadrant that I'm aspiring to get into and I'm trying to get you to get into. Okay. This is where my favorite passive income generating investments are, which are real estate syndications. This is where they come into play, allowing you to invest in cash flowing assets that generate income without requiring your constant attention. All right. But you may be asking yourself, Jeff, how do we move from the left side of the quadrant, if we're already employee or self-employed now, to the right side of the quadrant? Now, that's the journey that we're on with Dr. Daniel, right? So let's continue. So he gets hurt, he breaks his arm, he makes his decision. He wants to move to the right side of the quadrant, but how does he get there? Well, let's map that out for him and for you. Step number 1, he has to educate himself about businesses, about investments, how they work, what happens when you go to medical school or dental school and your residency. That's all you're doing. You're just focused on, you're focused on getting out, right? You're focused on how to treat patients and all that. And you get out and you make good money. And then what? You blow your money for the next 30 years and then you broke. That's the cycle. But those few that educate themselves, they don't end up like that. All right. So you've got to learn how businesses work. You got to learn how money works. You got to learn how taxes work, because taxes are it's going to be your biggest expense during your practice or your career. For him, he was very interested in the I quadrant. So he wanted to learn more about the principles of real estate and mainly syndications, because he has 3 kids. He doesn't have time to become a landlord. So he learns that real estate syndications, he learned that these are a way for a group of investors to pool their resources to go in and buy properties. Now, these properties are typically larger and more profitable than what you could typically afford if he was just by himself. So instead of him going out and buying, let's say he wanted to go buy a single family home, well, now he can go out and pool his money together, buy an RV park. He can buy a mobile home park. He can buy self-storage. He can buy a bunch of apartment complexes, whatever. So he can pool his money with other people to buy something much larger than like a single family home. Now, he learns that as a passive investor in the syndication, he can earn income from the property's operations and from the eventual sale of the property. So that's how you're going to make passive income. So from the rental income and any other income, like there's laundry or on property, or if there's storage on property, something like that. And then the eventual sale of the property. Dr. Daniel likes the sound of that. He likes the idea of having his money work for him instead of him working for his money. But as you can imagine, it's not as simple as just deciding to become an investor. It starts right here. Dr. Daniel has to change. So we'll put right here, he has to change his mindset. He has to think differently about money. He has to think differently about work. Maybe he was like me. Maybe he lived in a household that he was always taught that the money doesn't grow on trees. We don't have enough money. We can't afford this. We can't go on this trip. So for me, I thought money was scarce. There was only so much to go around, which, as you can see now, there's plenty of money to go around. He's got to figure out a way to get it. So he starts to see his dental profession, his work that he's gone to school for a lot, not as the end goal, but as a means to an end. He sees that his income not as a way to live comfortably now, but as a tool now to invest for the future. Now, over time, slowly but surely, he starts to make this transition, okay? Because he starts to, instead of putting all of his money in a 401k, thinking that he's going to be able to use it in 30 years, well, now he starts to, again, he's changed his mindset. He starts investing in syndications. And he starts to see the income, the passive income, start to flow in, starts to replace his expenses, even when he's not treating patients. That's the best part. And remember that broken arm that he had? Well, that actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise. It was actually the wake-up call that he needed to make him realize that he needed to take control of his financial future again, instead of relying on a financial advisor and a 401k. Now, question, are you ready to take control of your financial future? Are you ready to move from the left side to the right side of the cash flow quadrant? If you are, then one of the best places to start is over here.